Hello. For this exercise, we're going to go from this tomato to this. And that's kind of a fun little exercise to do a few things. We're going to use the pen tool for cutting things out. We're going to create a drop shadow. We're going to take the top of the piece of fruit and change it completely so it looks transparent. And we're going to put it all together again and reassemble it into this. So we're going to start with our tomato. We're going to start with a whole tomato, and then we're going to cut it in half, as you just saw right there. So we're going to take the tomato first and come in and basically select it. So you can take the object selection tool, or what I would prefer to do, which is quicker, is make a copy of the layer, come up to the new layer, and go to the properties bar and go remove background. Now you've got a nice mask here, and you've got the tomato mask so that we don't have any background, but you still have the background here. So that allows you to come in and cut the background up and still keep the original drop shadow, which is a really nice effect to keep and not have to rebuild. So I'm going to apply that mask because we're going to do a few other things to it. So now we just have that tomato on that layer. I'm going to turn off the back layer again. Now this time I want to come in and I'm going to use the pen tool to just create an area around here. I'm using the Option or Alt key. Come in around about halfway down the tomato and then click on the other side and then go back up here. And I want to pull this out so I'm not touching the sides of the tomato. And I'm just going to give this a little bit of a curve down here. And if you need to adjust these, you can certainly do that as well. Okay, let's turn that into a selection by, on the Macintosh, Command Return, on the PC, Control Enter. And now I'm going to Control or Command Shift J, and that will put the top of the tomato and the bottom of the tomato on two separate layers. So that's all you need to do there. Okay, we're going to turn that top of the tomato right here into black and white. So we are going to come in we don't want to do the whole image. We want to come into this layer, and because I want to know what I'm doing and have a little preview, I'm going to do it as an adjustment layer first. That looks good. I'm going to make the reds a little darker just so we have a little more contrast. And everything looks good. I like that. That's pretty cool. And once I've got that done, I'm just going to merge those two layers together. Now I'm going to change the blend mode of that to screen. And I need to turn on the other layers first so I can kind of see what's going on. And what I need to do in order to see that effect is actually put in a different background. So in this case, I want to take the background and cut it wherever I want the tomato to be kind of pulled apart. So I think right about there might be good. And I'm just going to come in on the layer above this, a new layer, and use the gradient tool and just use maybe two of the colors from the countertop here, like that warm gray and then the darker gray. And just use the gradient tool and bring it down. Up, I have to come up here and use the foreground to background gradient. And it's not much of a shift, but that's okay. We're not going to worry too much about that. If I want to come up here and darken that, I can just come here, bring it down and darken it, and just run that again, like that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to come up here. And you can see we've got the background here, and that gives us a much better idea of what's going on. The tomato is sitting on the counter. So now we have to come into this layer with the top of the tomato, and we're going to go and use levels. So Command or Control L will bring you to levels. Here's our levels dialog box. And we're going to shift around the slider until we see the transparency. And that looks pretty good right there. If you want the whites to kind of pop a little bit, you may want to bring the white slider to the left. If you want a little more contrast, you bring the middle slider over You can also come over on the black slider and kind of adjust that as well. So I'm going to just do that. And now we want to use the cut open portion of the tomato. So again, we're going to do exactly what we did before. We're going to just remove background after making a copy of the layer, and just come in and make the layer mask stick. And then I'm just going to drag and drop that one into our image right here. So I'm going to roughly place it where I want it, and then I'm going to use the transformation box to come in here and bring it down and put it in position as best I can. And I'm going to bring this down. Turn it. That one's sticking out too far, and just adjust it to however it looks the best in here, however it gives you that sense of a tomato being cut in half. So what you're looking for is this little point be right at the edge of the tomato on that side, that little point be right at the edge of the tomato on that side, which means I need to bring this over just a touch like that. And then we want to adjust the others very subtly until it all kind of matches up. And something more along the lines of that. You can flatten that out if you want it a little bit flatter, or leave it up. It's kind of up to you to decide how you want your tomato to look, or your orange or your lemon or whatever fruit you decided to use in this. So I'm going to bring that there. Cool. And you see that that is over top. This layer right now is over top of the tomato. We want it to be underneath, and that way we get the benefit of the top of the tomato going over it. I'm just going to get rid of that, and you'll see that looks pretty convincing. Again, you can come in here, and if you need to adjust again with your curves, with your levels, you can do that. I think we'll just add that little bit more gloss in there. We're going to replace the top piece here, the stem, so don't worry about that part. We're just looking at the transparency and translucency of that part of the tomato. And that's just going to bring up those highlights a bit. Okay, there we go. So basically that's it as far as making that part transparent. I'm going to come in here and transform this a bit and actually warp it. I did that with the Control key on the Mac, or you can do that with your right button on your PC. If your Mac has a right button, you can do it that way too. And I'm just reshaping that bottom part there. You won't see that very well, but it's pretty easy to make those adjustments. If you need to fine tune it, you can go up to Liquify and then use a good big brush to make a nice soft curve there, and just bring that down until it matches what you want it to be. Like that. And whatever size the curve is that I'm trying to stimulate, that's the size of the brush that you want to be using. So with a bigger curve that's not quite fitting, you come in and use a bigger brush. When it's a smaller curve, you use a smaller brush. There we go. So, okay. So I put it over top of the tomato like that, formed it up, and that's what I need to do there. So I'm going to come down to the bottom layer again. I'm holding down my Option or Alt key just to make only that layer visible. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to select by color range, and I'm going to click on the greens right here and hold the Shift key down and click a few more spots. Whoops. And kind of come in here. I don't want it to pick up too much, so I'm just going to come in here, and that looks pretty good. I want that to be as white as possible up in that area. Then I'm going to click OK, and in this case I'm just going to copy the whole thing over into a new layer. on the background layer so that I don't need to worry about all the rest of it. I've got all that stuff, but what I want to do is come in here and just use a quick lasso tool to come in and make a rough selection around this. Inverse that selection, and then get rid of any kind of overspray that might be there. So I'm just cleaning this up a little bit and using a small brush to kind of clean the edges here. And I don't want this part to be here, so I'm going to erase that carefully as well. Up here, here, and here. And you'll notice there's a little red, really, really saturated color like red, especially red, is going to bleed into other areas a lot of times. You'll get red tint on things, and we don't really want that. I'm just kind of erasing that part down here. So in order to get rid of that, what you can do is lock the layer so we can't paint on anything that's not already there. Sample the green that's there. I need to be in the brush tool. I'm in color. Okay, here we go. And that's kind of yellowy. Let me see if I can pick up a little bit more green. There we go. Okay, and so now I'm just going to paint over the stuff that kind of got red tinted. And that looks better to me. Okay, and I've got my brush at 50%, so I'm not putting it down all at once. Okay, I want to drag that layer up to the very top of my layers panel. I'm going to make the other layers visible now, and that is my tomato encasement there. I don't like the way that's sitting, so I'm just going to go in here and go to liquefy, because I want to be able to see that. I have, if I scroll down here, it's showing backdrop right there. I want to be able to show the backdrop. So if your backdrop is not on, scroll down and click that on. And that to me looks pretty good. So I'm going to click OK, and that looks like a pretty nice tomato. Now all you have to do is pick your other element, whatever it is, and put it underneath, in layers terms, underneath the top part of the tomato, but above the slice of the tomato. And whatever you do, you want to put in a shadow as well. You'll see in this case, right here, I had a little, from the Edward Gorey house on Cape Cod, I had the little skeleton head in a pot on the stove, so I took that off and then built a shadow that matched the shadow underneath the tomato to mimic the light, because the light is coming from a window behind this tomato. So you want to be careful that your light is coming from the same direction. Your shadows, we're going to talk about those in a lot of detail. I'm going to be nagging you about shadows all semester probably, because they're so important to making a realistic composite. But this is basically the way you turn a tomato into a clear domed object, or, as I said, a lemon, an orange, grapefruit, or any kind of fruit that's round and can be sliced. You could do this with. So what you're doing is picking up the highlights, retaining those, and giving everything else just a little bit of a cast there. I'm just going to add that. Now if I do 2 layers, you can see it gets a little more cloudy in there, which is kind of cool too. So use your imagination. You could put like fire in there. You could put a cloud inside of it, literally a cloud. You could put a tree in there. You could put all kinds of things in there. And it works. I think it works really well when you keep the stem and a couple of leaves up there. You could go, I'd really like you to try photographing your own, because it's so easy to do, and everybody has a piece of fruit hanging around, or should pretty much, or you can grab one from the dining common if you're a live-in student, or go to the grocery store if you're not and you don't have one, and just put it on a countertop or a desktop or whatever and photograph it and then play with this. But it's a cool idea. We talked about different layer blend modes. We've used the pen tool, we've used the liquefied tool, we have used opacity and the levels to get it to look exactly as we wanted it. And all of this stuff is great for learning how to do something like this for other purposes as well. I'm just gonna, that one's too bright. That's it, and I hope you enjoy this little kind of exercise, and I look forward to seeing what you do.